everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. So our topic today is staffing technology and success through strategic partnerships. I'm the moderator for today. My name is Laura Moritz. I'm the Director of Implementation for Flentis. I'm joined here with the Flentis Head of Sales, Eric Coppin, and our guests, Jeff Nugent, founder of Independently, Rory Spanier, COO of 360 Talent, and Lisa Wayne, Senior VP of Strategic Growth and Development at 360 Talent. So just to kind of, before we get into things, let everybody know that we're gonna kind of just have a good discussion amongst the group, and then we'll go into a Q&A session. So if there are any questions throughout the conversation, please leave those in the comments, and we'll get to those at the end. And before we jump into everything, super excited about the group that we have here today. But if you guys don't mind just spending about 30 seconds a minute going through around the group and introducing yourselves. So we'll start, Eric, with you. Maybe.
Faux pas there, I was on mute. So thank you, Laura. Eric Coppin here, run sales here for Flentis. Been in the industry about 25 years, come from the land of MSP and most recently direct sourcing, payroll, IC, seen a lot, but still learning quite a bit. Really excited about this chat because it's something that we're really passionate about here at Flentis. So thank you.
All right, Jeff, we'll go to you.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I've got about 28 years of experience in the industry, originally in IT staffing, really the last bunch of years been in the employer of record, IC compliance, and now with founding Independently, we're an independent third-party assessments and vetting of independent contractors that also provide an insured indemnification product. So I'm so excited about the partnership discussion because it's so important in creating seamless solutions for clients. And quite honestly, this group you've assembled is amazing. So thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Rory, we'll go to you next.
Yeah, Eric and Laura, thank you for having us. So Rory Spanier, 23 years. I guess I'm the new kid on the block with 23 years of industry experience here. Grew up in the MSP space, running a desk, moved into operations management, went over to the buy side for a period of time to bring in an MSP VMS solution. Was heavily involved in architecting a lot of global deals, moved into the platform space for a period of time. And that's actually where Jeff and Eric and I had an opportunity to meet a few years back. And here with 360, where we're building, where we have an MSP practice and workforce consulting practice under the umbrella of a certified woman, certified minority-owned staffing firm. Really excited about trying to do some things a little bit differently, and partnership is deeply ingrained in everything that we do from an MSP perspective, and really excited about the topic that we have here today.
Perfect. And last but not least, Lisa.
Hello, everybody. Lisa Wayne, based out of the San Francisco Bay Area, where it's going to be a very high temperature week for us. So dealing with that, and also dealing with the fact that I'm not going to exactly pinpoint the number of years that I've been in this space. So I'm feeling like the grandma, but I have been in it for well over 20 years. I am the founder, if you will, of 360 and lead sales for the organization, and was thrilled to be able to secure Rory's interest in joining our organization and driving the bus. So thanks for including me in this conversation.
Of course. Perfect. Thank you all. And I'm super excited for the conversation. I love when we get to talk to our partners, and it's great to talk to our partners about partnership. How do we find each other? How do we work together? All that goes into that. So I want to kind of kick off the conversation just talking about partnership trends, how partnerships have evolved in the industry. And I want to just start with you, Jeff. What have you seen over the past few years of trends, and how are partnerships evolving?
It's been really interesting with the evolution of the contingent workforce space, right? because there's some key strategic foundational components to it that in the early days, a lot of organizations were just really pitching the silver bullet. We can do everything for everyone. And, often being really good at one of the components, be it an MSP or be it the employer of record or payrolling, or really good with technology. And then a few years later, there was really this evolution to best of breed in each of the strategic foundations of a program, right? And so there was this really pick your space and be really good at it. And so that really then kind of brought up this idea of the ecosystem and the partnerships that you have to work within to provide a solution, because there are all these foundational pieces. And then as innovation and technology started to advance, there was more players offering little components or like really point solutions that created additional innovation or certain features that clients required, and that continued to broaden this idea of, okay, you could pick a silver bullet and try to be jack of all trades and generally master of maybe one or none, or be really good in your space and then really learn to partner. What the client wants, though, is a seamless solution, right? And so it became really incumbent or important for partners to interact and start to work together to make things more seamless for the client. So the experience for the job seeker, the hiring manager, and the program teams were a lot easier. So, that's kind of the evolution. And, as we look to the future with AI and more technology innovation and other types of point solutions, I think the idea of seamless partnerships and building strong relationships within ecosystems just only going to grow from there.
Absolutely. Anything to add from anyone else on the panel about any trends that you've noticed before I move on to the next portion?
I think you nailed it, Jeff.
The perfect answer. Nothing needs to be added.
Thank you, guys. What a great partnership.
It's a first here. Well, you mentioned some interesting things there. One of those is the seamless solution, seamless transition for the client. They really want it to appear as one solution for them. They don't want the choppiness of it that could possibly come from working with a bunch of different partners. So Rory, can you kind of speak to the complexities of implementing, managing these types of programs and how you present that seamless front to the client?
So yeah, as Jeff was saying, we've seen an evolution in the industry. 15 years ago, you were seeing more providers that were doing trying to do more things in-house. But I mean, I remember in 2008, 2009, we were having conversations regularly with the president of the organization I was with, and we had a single-threaded MSP and VMS solution at the time, and we were losing deals to your Beelines of the world and your Fieldglasses of the world at the time, because we were struggling to have our own identity. Were we a services company or were we a technology company? Because you only have a finite dollar amount to invest in R&D. So as we were doing that evolution, I mean, ultimately they ended up selling the technology to what is, Beeline has acquired that company at the stage of the game. And that really, you saw a lot of the successes with the MSPs in the earlier part of the 2000s that had that partnership driven strategy, where they were working with external technology partners. And I think that as the industry has evolved and we're bringing in new components from your direct sourcing technology platforms, from new and emerging VMS technology platforms, you're looking at your independent contractors and doing the IC vetting, the technology that's capable of that. I look at our role as the MSP to basically be the conductor of the orchestra. So we have the percussion section that is, the regular cadence. Maybe it's the VMS that is supporting you with your day-to-day requisition fulfillment for your contingent workers. Maybe your win-win section is your direct sourcing, and how are you plugging in that direct sourcing technology into the VMS to make a seamless a seamless process or a seamless experience for your hiring managers. And as we take a design thinking approach to any solution that we're architecting, we're always focusing in on that end user experience. And oftentimes the end users are accustomed to working. All of us are creatures of habit, and if we've done something one way and it's been successful, we may go in and repeat that. But this is where we come into play as partners with the industry, as far as understanding when does it make sense to introduce Flentis as a VMS technology? What's the right client? And conversely, when is Flentis looking at 360, and what's our sweet spot to make a recommendation for the clients that they're speaking to? Maybe it makes sense for us to engage. So this is really where we do a deep dive of understanding each other's capabilities. Where do we complement each other, and where does it make sense for us to partner? And I think that's the direction that we're going in, especially as the world of work is trying to tackle the total talent management aspect. It's 100% dependent upon the technology partnerships and the services partnerships that we're building in the across the industry.
Absolutely. I think that's so important to have that one point of contact or one organization that is really leading and the client facing and making sure that everyone else is on the same page. Does anyone else have any other perspectives, maybe from the technology side, Eric or Jeff?
Well, I mean, my personal feeling is so much has changed in the last 5 to 10 years in our industry. It really is technology enabled, and it's going to only continue to be like that, especially with the addition of AI into the equation. I'm sure that's what everybody's been talking about and will be talking about for a while. But as we've personally seen, there's a lot of these new organizations and innovation that's come about that's helped certain aspects of the contingent workforce landscape, right? And all you have to do is go to the SIA gig economy show, and you see all these really cool new tech companies that are solving problems that have been an issue for a long time in our industry, and or thinking about things from a different perspective, right? So it all boils down to the client challenges, and I do think that we sometimes try to lump everything into one easy out of the box solution. But as we've noticed, even client systems, client requirements have evolved and changed. So we need, as an industry, to become more nimble, right? More agile, provide more options, and the organizations that can do that are the ones that are going to be successful and continue to grow in our space.
Absolutely. So, go ahead, Jeff.
And Rory really nailed it with the idea of this orchestra, right? And the ecosystem being the different pieces of the orchestra to play together. And Eric mentioned it is incumbent on us to work together to make sure the client's needs are met, right? Because if it's too overwhelming, typically buyers don't buy, and solutions won't go forward, and the change doesn't happen, and the innovation that's needed in our business doesn't move forward either. And so if it's seamless, it generally is easier to change and move forward with things. And so it's very exciting times, as Eric's also mentioned, with all the innovation that's coming forward, but it really is incumbent upon us to make that happen and make it seamless. Because too many pieces, if you don't have that seamless integration and orchestra and a conductor of the orchestra bringing it all together, it doesn't sound very good and won't move forward.
Absolutely. And when you think about all of the different players that can be involved in a program, Lisa, I'm interested to hear from you how you go about choosing who you want involved in that and who you actually want to partner with, what that process looks like for you.
Absolutely. And I think that as we think about the who we want to partner with, you need to start with the how do you get to the problems that you're trying to solve. And so that is by being an active listener, asking really, really good discovery, open-ended questions to elicit a better understanding as to the business challenges that are either facing these buyers in the present or that they're anticipating may be something that they need to reckon with in the near future or even the longer term future. So really, we at 360 pride ourselves on never going in super prescriptive. We go in asking the patient, if you will, what their symptoms are and what their desired vision is for good health in their world. And then we help them get there by leveraging the incredible network that we have accrued over the years. And that comes from having relationships with Jeff and with Eric and with you and with your competitors, quite frankly, and understanding where the expertise lies, where the differentiators are, and then customizing solutions that are fit to purpose. And I think that the biggest key and a differentiator for our organization, where the whole idea of 360 came from, if you will, is that with a background in Big Five MSP, dealing with behemoth programs that have vast amounts of spend under management that they need help with, working towards total talent management, there's the mid-market that's been left behind. And so we believe that size matters and all size matters because all of the problems or the opportunities based on perspective that we're discussing here are real for any enterprise, regardless of what their revenue is or their employee count. They have serious need around talent management, workforce solutions. And so using your word, Jeff, of being, it's incumbent upon us. It is incumbent upon us to constantly innovate, to constantly be proactive with thought leadership, and to do that for any buyer who has a need. And I would contend that that is more than what is being serviced today by the big guys. And so that's where we see our space, but we leverage the big players and the up and comers like a Flentis accordingly to meet the needs of these objectives. But again, it just really is very simple. It's not rocket science. It's about asking the right questions, establishing trust and credibility by demonstrating what it is you say you can do, and then moving forward from there.
So I think something that you said is really interesting about it being it not really mattering the size of the client, right? Every company has these needs, regardless if you're 10 million in spend, 500 million in spend. So if anyone here, or Lisa, if you want to kind of talk about this because you were the one that brought it up, can speak to just how you approach those clients differently. Because they are different inherently just because of their size or spend amount or type of worker that they're hiring. How does that affect what partnerships you're bringing on board and what the strategic approach is?
Sure. So again, I think it comes down to the communities that we've curated. I mean, we have well over a century of expertise represented on this panel, right? And so we have deep relationships. There's a lot of crossover in those relationships. And so networking all the time is very important. And our industry does a very good job. There are many different avenues or forums available for getting out there and preaching the gospel, right? But again, from our perspective at 360, it's not about preaching, it's about listening and asking those questions to receive the answers. So when you're approaching an organization that is perhaps just getting started, maybe they're, pre-Gen 1, with their contingent workforce program thinking, it's about helping them to plug into the right networks as well. So doing things like this webinar, participating in different industry events, making introductions. That is a tactic that we've leveraged quite successfully here, where when we get folks who say, hey, I'm in procurement. I've been asked to figure out how the heck we're going to bring in a contingent workforce. We have some folks here booked against SOWs. We don't have cost savings. We know we need it. We don't have visibility. We're not sure that we're, tight from a compliance perspective. All of the typical pillars that one looks for in having a workforce program in place. To begin with, you start by introducing them, at least we do, to other buyers who've been in that same predicament, who have been helped by our organizations or by our channel partners, such as all the folks represented on this call, to better plug in and implement solutions, be it technology or service oriented, to meet the needs that are identified through all of the discovery dialogue. And I'm sure, Rory, that you have additional thoughts on that, the work that we're doing here.
Yeah, I think, everybody in the industry wants to go after that sexy large enterprise client. And I mean, I think they do, and they warrant it, and they get a lot of really great attention from the larger players. But I think, when you're looking at the mid-market space in particular, that headcount that is coming into that program for those hiring managers or for those organizations are all the more mission critical for that company to be able to deliver their next quarterly earning report. And I think those solutions are, we're more dependent upon our supplier partnerships to deliver more successfully. We have to be ingrained with our client, whether we're talking staffing firms, whether we're talking SOWs, the VMS, and even the IC vetting firms. We all need to be interlocked to make sure that we're delivering seamlessly and very, very efficiently to deliver, because that talent is that much more mission critical to the success of the mid-market space.
Anything anyone wants to add there?
Yeah, I think, we've talked about seamlessness, right? And so there's a lot of the larger providers that are bringing up new solutions and building them out themselves, but often what we've talked about in this evolution is best of breed. So trying to be everything to everyone typically doesn't make you best of breed in any of those different foundational categories, or even in the new point solutions or features of, be it technology or service provision. And so, it's really important to always be looking at what's new and what are clients asking for and needing, and finding those best of breed point solutions or players in those categories, and then working together to either technically integrate or integrate the seamless workflows, so that as the clients are asking for those, you can bring those solutions to market and interact. Although we see it on the vendor side sometimes as a sales initiative, but really it's a solutions initiative on what the client is asking for. And having those proactive relationships built and vision of what's happening in the future, you can provide those solutions in that, going back to that seamless manner, where it doesn't feel like anything's really changing. You're just flipping the switch on a new feature or a new service offering within an existing kind of scenario where you've got your program in place, and you're slowly but surely bringing it to the second gen, third gen, fourth gen with the innovation, but it doesn't feel like you're making these big bang changes, right? And so, having these proactive relationships within our community is so important, because then it makes it really easy on the customers, right, to innovate and find these solutions when they're asking for it or need it.
So one of the things that I think is really interesting, just listening to the four of you talk, is there's kind of a combination of innovation is needed and wanted in this space, but also these partnerships have been around for a long time, right? Like the four of you on this screen have known each other for a long time and have been in the industry for a long time. So and those two things kind of seem to contradict each other, right? Like, how do we have innovation at the same time as we're dealing with the same partners? So is there space in the industry for newcomers, and how is that received? And that's kind of just a question to all four of you.
So if I may, absolutely there is. And, we got to keep it exciting. Everybody loves some competition, right? And at the end of the day, I think that it's also incumbent upon us to exalt our partners and to celebrate them and to be very transparent with what those partnerships are. So although you want to keep it seamless for your buyer and present, yourself as an MSP, for instance, as that conductor of the orchestra, right? The primary point of contact to deal with, to engage with. We don't hide our partnerships. We look for cultural alignment, cultural fit. We put in solutions that are fit to purpose, which we learn what those solution design need to look like through really comprehensive discovery, as I've been speaking about. And so to introduce who's new on the market to that space is fantastic. If we weren't a community or a market segment that was interested in that, 360 wouldn't exist. I think that we are the newest, and Flentis, you're probably right behind us. Actually, independently, you're the newest. You just went to market, Jeff, right? So absolutely, there is always an opportunity to introduce newer, better, and creative ways of getting things done. So
you brought up a good point, though, Laura, where it is a lot of personal relationships that have been built over time. So like the faces here have been in the industry, but the logos on the t-shirts have changed, right? And so newcomers from new people entering in the industry, sometimes it's hard to enter it, but generally we embrace new people and new innovative products, but also it's earned, right? The trust, integrations and partnerships are trust needs to be built. And so, although the logos have changed, I've worked with Eric, I've hired Eric, we've been friends for many years. I've worked with Rory at different companies and different logos. They're all the people on this call I would trust to go to war with, right? And so to be able to, if something's going awry at a client site, to be able to call someone personally and say, hey, at 11 o'clock at night and go, hey, tomorrow we got to do this, this, and this on this situation. We got to get it done. That's why, longevity in the business and building relationships through experience and trust is so important, because, if you can, once again, we have that call 11 o'clock at night and we show up in the morning to the client and we've got the problem solved. Guess what? Everybody's happier. Our solutions are consistently within the client. The client's problems are solved, but that's based on experience. So sometimes the newbies, might find it, and they'll call it incestuous little world that we live in, but we do embrace that, but it's generally the trust is earned over time often as well.
And I would also add to that one other thing. I mean, you think about where we are today in our industry and where we were 4 years ago, pre-pandemic, the landscape has changed tremendously. The challenges are completely different. So it's really evolve or die, right? And that's just business. So, what we see as an organization in different industries can be completely different from one another. If you were to look at like a 3PL or a manufacturing client versus healthcare, they all have challenges, but they're different and they need different prescription, right? So what we have to do as thought leaders and innovators is really be attentive to the change and where our industry is headed, because it's interesting. Jeff and Lisa have all touched on the relationship aspect of how we've known each other for long periods of time, but it's also through those different experiences where we've seen what's gone really well and what has not gone really well, and that spurs the innovation, right? Like, this is the challenge. If we had handled this problem just a little bit differently or with this kind of approach, then I think we would have had a much better outcome. That's the kind of stuff that really spurs innovation. And so, we see in industry colleagues all the time that, branch out, either go on to them, go out on business for themselves or, join a completely different style organization. it piques our interest because we're like, wow, you were just here a little while ago. Why did you come here? Well, let me tell you why. So it's that give and take that I think has really created a lot of fodder for all of us that have been around for a while to learn new things, take new approaches, because you can't stay you know in park or in neutral in anything. I mean, you look at the MSP programs, and Lisa and Rory can certainly attest to this. If you're not growing, you're dying, right? If you're not evolving, you're losing, because someone else out there is, and the needle's always moving. It's always moving. So it's exciting to see these new companies coming up, because you know what, they do answer problems and they do have fresh perspectives, and we need that. That drives us day after day, and it's all client focused, right? We're here to solve client problems, but do it together.
So I think that you used a really interesting word in prescription. So that's really what we're doing, right? When we work with our partners, we're seeing the client needs and saying, okay, we need this person involved, and put together exactly what fits for that client. But there's also another element of it where the client may already be working with someone or have already chosen a piece of the puzzle. And then we have to come into that picture and work with a partner that maybe we haven't worked with before. So can you guys speak to a little bit about like the preference? Obviously you want to work with partners you've worked with before, but how you kind of approach that conversation with clients, and then how you approach the situation if you are working with someone new.
I mean, it's pretty prevalent in the MSP VMS space for sure, where you see kind of that forced marriage, where the clients, more often than not now, clients are making a decision for the VMS and MSP separately. So there are, I mean, part of it, the question is, what's your familiarity with XYZ technologies? What's your familiarity with XYZ services aspect of it? But I mean, I think, as we're building these solutions for the client, I think collectively both organizations, or all the different organizations, are looking at what is the client ultimately needing, and how can we best collaborate to be able to help them along that journey. I haven't run into areas of contentiousness. I've worked for different organizations where a partnership may have gone against the grain of that internal organization, but still you go through the process, and you build those relationships, you develop those relationships, all with keeping the goal of client satisfaction and earning that business and earning the right to continue to do business day in and day out with that client. So I think that spirit of collaboration starts from the ground up. I mean, oftentimes it's a forced marriage, but I mean, I think you do build those relationships over time, especially at the client service delivery perspective. That's what I've seen in the industry.
And the clients are expecting us to know the landscape and provide that kind of thought leadership when we're solutioning. They want to know why it would be effective for them. They want to hear the case study behind it, right? And how it would pointedly solve an issue for them, and be a part of all strategy going forward when it comes to talent acquisition. I mean, we should never stop asking the question, why not? And be that kind of a North Star for our clients. So we should be hungry for information. And there's so many neat, new, innovative companies that have come up in the last few years. And there's all these little niches, inside our space that we don't even think of before, right? But now we do. And, I think it's great that you see these new companies, these new techs and new platforms, new services, the graying of the lines, with gig work, consulting, services, procurement. I mean, it's really, our space has gone from just putting people in jobs to solving some pretty big, complex questions out there, and it's going to continue to grow and grow and grow, I think.
I challenge the whole idea when there are these forced marriages, but it's also incumbent upon the buyer to, when they're procuring the various components, be it a VMS, then the MSP separately, and the employer of record payrolling firm separately, to understand how they also have worked together and can integrate for them, right? And to know the history of working together and understanding the references of that and how it's went. Because forcing certain players together that haven't played well in the past, but you procure them separately, is a recipe for disaster. So because you end up seeing a lot of this, pointing fingers at each other and playing politics that then you're going, why am I having to babysit or be the referee in the sandbox of these children? And it's making my life more miserable. So, I do believe it's important to, innovate and bring new people in, and understanding the approach to having them play nice, but where some of those foundational components, making sure that they do integrate seamlessly, they are referenceable with that, or the individuals within those organizations, and maybe it is individuals representing a new player or an innovative technology, how they have worked with those MSPs or VMSs in the past. Because if there isn't this trust built between the players, then decisions on strategically investing on integrations, extra time and workflows, resources to support may not be made because they don't see the long-term importance of that partnership, right? Like this panel, we've all known each other for so long that it's a scenario where those we will go to bat for each other and making sure our clients get the best of breed solution that feels seamless, right? And so it's important that the clients understand the relationships behind the logos, because what's written on an RFP and what gets implemented in the 6 months down the road, you don't want finger pointing, you want solutions as a client. Right?
Well, and to that, Jeff, I think that those synergies between partners, we should let it shine, right? Because cultural alignment is a big part of all this. That's what I hear you getting at. And I would also contend that outsourcing in its truest form is a buyer makes a decision. You establish your milestone and deliverables, then get the heck out of the way and let the supply chain or whoever you've hired to engage do their thing, right? And so through the sales journey to winning deals, we benefit in our partnerships from shared wins and shared losses, and learning from each of those and being able to proactively tell that as our shared narrative as we are pursuing business jointly. So absolutely, you're constantly selling, you're constantly asking questions, you're constantly innovating. And by doing these things in perpetuity for the life of the relationship with the enterprise who is engaging with you, you end up having happy customers.
There's a there's a comment in the chat saying, "Oh, I've always thought that staffing is a closed industry for newcomers." I'm kind of looking at that, and I'm looking at the panel that we have here, and I'd say, all three of our respective organizations, we're less than 2-3 years old in some instances. So I would challenge that in saying that there's disruption that's happening in the industry. On the VMS side, for sure. I think, with SAP buying Fieldglass several years ago, that really created an opportunity for VMSs to be able to come in and service clients differently than what they were getting from that SAP feeling. And I think it's really, you're seeing that over the last, 3 to 5 years. You're seeing some really good, innovative, disruptive players in the market. And I think that's really some of the key things that we're driving the passion from our own perspective. How can we disrupt this industry? Where do we find our sweet spot, and how can we do things? Where do we see that void in the market, and how can we go in there and dive deeper to solve those problems for those clients? So, and I think there are opportunities, but you're looking at what's your organizational DNA, what's your, where do you see that gap in the industry, and what are you doing to try to close that gap in the industry? That's, I mean, business 101 and marketing 101 is how do you properly position yourself? But disruption's happening across technology, across services.
I would add to
the
that, Rory.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Jeff. Anything DEI centric, anything that's driving more diversity, equity, and inclusion by way of a practice that is established and goes to market is going to be a natural win for at least getting the audience and being able to tell the story of the why you're here and what it is you hope to do, particularly in the US. So sorry, Jeff.
No problem. One of the key things for newcomers, like we were all newcomers at some point over time, and we all, came in. It's playing nice and understanding the ecosystem, understanding the needs. Coming in with, your ball cap on backwards and a propeller flying and saying, we're going to disrupt this industry and take on everybody. And sorry for those comments, but take on everybody. And why do clients need an MSP? And what's this VMS thing? Hold on. These are large corporate decisions. Like the VMS, if it's in there, often is like an ERP, and it's an ERP type system. And so once it's in, sometimes it's hard to disrupt. Can you innovate it and bring in new features and functionalities? Yes. But are you going to disrupt it? So instead of trying to disrupt the ecosystem, like you said in your analysis of clients, Lisa, listen, understand the ecosystem, see where you fit, and try to play within it. And yeah, that's a good way of disrupting it as well, because you're bringing your innovative thoughts and new things to it, but you're not going to turn it upside down, especially with some of the larger clients that, or clients that are second and third gen. They want to innovate in iterations, not disruption, right? Because we are talking people's lives and how they get paid. And so trying to disrupt that could be, is not going to probably happen. So that's advice to newcomers to come in, so you're accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. So just a real quick reminder to everyone, please leave your comments. We're going to go to the Q&A session just after this last question here. But I think something that's been kind of a theme, and you each have touched on it a little bit, is the client's role in all of this. They don't just sit back and we come in and like hand something to them on a silver platter. They have to participate in the process and understand. Jeff, I think you made the point of, if you're working with different partners, there's some ownership on the client to make sure that they work well together, that they're not just picking out of a hat here, picking out of a hat there. So I'm interested to hear just from each of you really quickly, what do you think is like a must ask question, or something that a client should be aware of when they're navigating that and how to make that choice? We'll start with Eric.
Well, I think the two things that really come to mind when you ask that question is managing expectations and roles and responsibilities within your solution architecture, right? And I think you have to be very transparent and direct with the clients when you're, cooperatively sculpting their solution, but advise them that, hey, your MSP is your symphony conductor, right? So they're the tip of the spear in your program. They're going to be gathering the requirements. They're going to be managing your expectations and helping you understand next steps, but also the roles and responsibilities. I think that is so important to be very, very transparent with a client and at the get-go, right? As a client, we need you to provide us data, have a firm understanding of the challenges internally, externally, what has been working for you, what hasn't been working for you. We need all of that information. But conversely, we also need, the MSPs and all the other attributed partners to understand what their role is. We need the client to understand what their role is, so that there's no confusion, there's no understanding, and as the program continues through implementation to go live, everybody has their lane, right? And the communication is across all lanes, and the client understands that even though this is a source scenario, they still are the owner of the program, bottom line. So, it's not easy because, a lot of people think, okay, I outsource this, the MSP's got it, hands off. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all. It's a true partnership between the program office and the client. It's got to be joined and at the hip. Because really, if you think about it, what we do in our industry, we are an extension of talent acquisition. We may be external, but at the end of the day, we're out there finding great talent for organizations and helping them achieve their goals internally. So it's a pretty important role. It's a pretty important responsibility. But what I've seen mistakes time and time again is lack of understanding of the program RACI and incorrectly managing expectations for clients and partners. I think that's just so important. Over communicate, really over communicate 100%.
Yeah, very, very well stated, Eric. I mean, I think from my perspective, I think you're looking at the client, the starting point with the client is, what's your current state? And then where are your current challenges and issues? I mean, what's working well with what you have going on today? I mean, are you working off of spreadsheets? Are you working off of a technology? What's working well for your hiring managers? And do a deep dive into that current state and identify what the problems that you're looking to ultimately solve with bringing in a new type of a solution. And that's where you're going to find the most success is let's have clear targeted goals. And maybe it's having that difficult conversation with some of the users within your organization that are not happy with the way things are currently going today, or they don't want to have the resistance to the change because they have relationships with certain providers here and there. So identify those key stakeholders and pay attention to what their perspective is on any sort of potential change, and invite them to be a part of an evaluation process on what they would like to see differently or what they would like to see as part of a future state solution. But I think a lot of it comes with the current state, and you do see a lot of clients who if they don't have the VMS in play yet, they have difficulty getting to the data, because that's certainly one of the key value propositions for bringing in a VMS is providing that visibility to begin with. So, but part of it is just get the current state and really go from there. And we can be prescriptive with the type of questions that you should be looking at internally, so you can ultimately make the right decision on what's the best solution for your organization. What are the best providers to be able to partner with?
I think one of the things a client can do to understand the relationships between partners is attend some conferences, but also potentially bring together people during the evaluation processes in vendor briefing meetings and potentially social situations. Because a lot of us all either know each other or don't or whatever, and you can see some of the interaction between partners at these different situations, be it a vendor briefing or be it at a conference, and understand who knows who and who has really tight relationships with each other. I think, one of the worst things you could do is have a very rigid scorecard in each of these categories that only buys the top number and doesn't think about how they interact with each other. So be it an MSP, VMS, employer of record, et cetera, et cetera. Because if you're only buying based on who had the highest score, it's almost like, and maybe I apologize if you guys were book smart, but it's a scenario where hiring the person who always had the highest grade in school may not be the right hire, right? So it's a scenario where starting to see that interaction and asking about interaction and history is important. but actually physically seeing it in some of these social events and or conferences, how partners interact and their longevity and and sometimes examples and stories of difficult situations and how did you interact to solve that between two partnerships. Like it's almost like an interview question for an individual you can ask between partners as well.
In the spirit of what everybody's been saying, we ask during the RFP process, which is a whole nother topic, right? But oftentimes RFPs ask for client references. And I wonder if it's amiss not to be asking about partner references as well. Because I agree wholeheartedly with all of the comments that have been made. And I think that that might be another way of helping buyers identify those synergies.
Yeah.
And we all know, we all know who, between the industry, you kind of know who plays nice in the sandbox with who and who are friends. And so some of those references would come out, right? If asked.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great point.
Maybe not on the record though.
All right, we're going to jump into the Q&A portion of this. Looks like we've got some questions from the audience. Let's see here. All right, so we'll kind of treat this, if there's anyone specific that wants to grab the question, please feel free to answer, but share your thoughts on the keys to evangelizing, socializing, and ultimately adoption by the client hiring leaders when working with an outside partner.
So from my perspective, change management lives in perpetuity. It's not a one and done. You're constantly evangelizing the program to bolster the brand of the program and of that buyer, the engagement community of talent. So I think that it's also okay for organizations in the spirit of promoting better adoption to bring in an outside consultancy, even outside of your own MSP, to perhaps help with that piece of it, where perhaps that is bolstered by having a program maturity modeling session on the front end or some sort of health check where you are inspecting what you expect, because it's awful hard to sell something if it ain't working. So you want to make sure that from the point of go live, right, as you're holding your breath for the first invoicing cycle to hit and make sure that that happens seamlessly, that you are keeping your fingers on the pulse above and beyond that very crucial period of time. So to me, change management lives in perpetuity. It's by leveraging everything that's available to you through your organization, be it your intranet site, your internal communications entity within the organization, what have you. But you should work in concert with your MSP to develop approaches that make sense and produce the desired results.
And Eric made a great point too a few moments ago where he was talking about, while this might be an outsourcing solution, it is an extension of talent acquisition within those organizations. And there's a shared responsibility both on the outsourcing partner side as well as the internal stakeholders to share and cascade that messaging with it across the community. So if there is a feeling that it's an outside partner, so to say, that's part of the problem right there, because you want to make it feel as though that it's an inclusive partnership. And maybe some of it starts with your program team has client emails. They're on the client intranet. So there's a look and feel as though that there's more of a seamlessness there rather than an outside type of focusing partnership.
Absolutely. All right, we've got another question. Let's see. How do you navigate when one of the partners fail to establish the same repo with a client as you do? So Jeff, this is back to it's a recipe for disaster if you don't have those partners that work well together. So how, if you get yourself into that situation where you've got partners that are not playing well together, what's the solution to that?
Yeah, I almost think of it as if you've got employees or team members that aren't interacting, you got to address it, right? Yeah. So if I'm the client or the MSP acting on the client's behalf, if you're seeing these negative interactions that are potential disruption to the program, you got to address it. And I don't think you want to do knee-jerk reactions. If you went through the selection process and you've contracted with a new vendor and et cetera, you want to address it, find ways to fix things, be it, I find having a dinner, having actually a beverage together, and socializing and understanding each other in a more personal manner, and then addressing, saying, what are some of these issues and how do we fix them? Because this is how the disruption is what is happening to the program and the organization. You hopefully can resolve them. You give it some time, and if not, yeah, you may have to switch out. But in that time frame, you're also, your MSP, or you are researching the alternatives and the solutions, the alternative solutions to that change, so that you might be able to make it almost as seamless as possible, that when a change has to happen because there's no resolution, that you've got a solution to back it up. And Lisa, I know you're probably smiling with this because you do that every day, right? As the MSP, you're thinking about these situations because, sometimes situations come up that can't be resolved, but you try it at first.
Voting them off the island.
Yeah.
Right? Not as simple as voting them off the island and snuffing out their tiki torch.
No.
All right, we've got one last question. We'll make it really quick. We're at the top of the hour. Initiating client outreach can be daunting for newcomers in a vast market. Could you suggest novel approaches for initial client engagement for collaboration? So if someone can kind of give us a 30-second response to that one.
I'm not sure that I understand what the ask is here. Initiating client outreach. If you're referring to your newcomer in the space, you're trying to start building up a pipeline and a book of business, that's one answer. If it's, I'm already servicing a buyer and I need to reach out to that client with XYZ, that's a different answer. So I'm not sure which is being
Let's go with the first one. How would you answer the first one, Lisa?
I would say, Eric, how do you do this? Because I think Flentis has had tremendous success in leading sales initiatives. So, Eric, do tell.
Oh, thanks a lot for passing the torch.
We're partnering.
Don't snuff it out while I'm trying to answer. I would say know your strengths, right? So if you're good at something and you know that there's clients out there or partners out there that are not quite as good at it, then you're obviously answering a question, right? So understanding your target market is first. So it's really about your go-to-market strategy that really compels you as a business organization. So it's a little bit introspective, right? Really understanding what you're good at. But I think, understanding that our business, our industry is full of organizations that are looking for new shiny objects, right? We're always looking for that added arrow in the quiver. So I think if you can really create a good go-to-market strategy, if you're solving for a specific problem or a couple problems, you start there, and then it has to be a multi-channel approach, right? You've got to have strong marketing. You've got to have great partnership building capabilities. You got to have good inside, outside sales strategy, and you've got to be able to put everything together. But you also have to be a little patient, right? You can't expect to change the world in 30 days or 6 months even. It takes time. And if you are patient and you are steadfast and you are truly good at what you do, success is ahead, but you have to continue to keep pushing and moving forward. And relationships matter. Relationships matter in this industry. And I will tell you what, if it wasn't for the relationships I enjoy today, especially with all of you guys on the panel today, I don't know if I would be in the place that I am. So I think that is a great way to kind of wrap things up, is that, when you take care of other people, it circles back to you,
Yeah.
Perfect. That is actually the perfect ending, Eric. Thank you. And thank you, Jeff, Lisa, Rory. Thank you guys for joining us. And of course, Eric, always a good time having these conversations with you. Please feel free to reach out to us if there were any questions that did not get answered. We will be answering those. But thank you, everyone, for listening. And we'll talk to everyone next time.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful end of the week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.